The sun was high, but the street felt colder once they arrived. 2 squad cars. Sirens off. No announcement. Just 2 officers. White board, entitled, stepping out with a swagger they'd rehearsed 100 times before. They spotted him. Raymond Ellis, 63, retired steelworker. Vietnam vet. Brown slacks. Groceries in one hand. Cane in the other. They called out, "Hey, you! Stop right there." Raymond turned, calm. "I live right up the block. Hands where I can see him. Now." "For what?" "You match the description," one said, already reaching for his belt. "What description?" Raymond asked. That was enough. They shoved him, knocked the cane from his hand, forced him to the concrete like they were pressing dirt into the ground. One had his knee on Raymond's neck. The other laughed. "You people always think you got rights out here." Across the street, behind a parked car, a man in full military dress stood frozen. Colonel Marcus Ellis, a Bronze Star on his chest, a bloodline in his grip, watching his father be treated like nothing. He didn't run over. He didn't yell. He hit record. Then he made the call, and everything changed. What would you do if this was your father? Comment your country. Share if justice must answer to everyone, not just those in uniform. Raymond Ellis never saw himself as anyone important, but the neighborhood did. To some, he was Mr. Ellis, the man with the steady hands. To others, just Big Ray, the one who fixed broken lawnmowers for free and never raised his voice, even when you deserved it. He had that look in his eyes, the kind that's seen war, lost friends, buried family, and still chose to plant tomatoes every spring. Raymond's house sat on the same corner lot in Easton Heights for 34 years. The porch creaked. The grass leaned toward disobedience. The screen door had a dent shaped like a football from 2009, but inside, it was church. Old jazz records stacked beside folded flags. Photos of his wife, June, gone 5 winters now, and a framed newspaper article. Steelworker saves 3 in plant fire, refuses recognition. That was Raymond. He didn't talk much about the things he did. He let the silence do the explaining. He had one son, Marcus. From the time Marcus was 5, he watched his father treat every stranger like they mattered, even when the world didn't return the favor. "Your name's not how you speak it," Raymond once told him. "It's how people whisper it when you're not around." That stayed with Marcus. Maybe too much. Marcus left for West Point at 18, graduated with distinction, went on to lead missions in the Middle East, Africa, and the Pacific, earning medals he never wore and scars he never mentioned. But he called home every Sunday, even if the call only lasted 3 minutes, even if Raymond just said, "Proud of you, son," and hung up before emotions got out of hand. They were men of restraint, but never men of distance. Back in Easton Heights, Raymond stuck to routine. 6 a.m., black coffee, no sugar. 7:30, walk to the corner store. 12 o'clock, fix something broken, a bike, a heart, didn't matter. 5 o'clock, dinner alone, plate facing the empty chair that used to be June's. 9 o'clock, read scripture, usually Psalms. And in between he watched how the world tilted further against people who looked like him. Watched young officers drive too fast down his block, eyes scanning for the wrong body in the wrong place. Watched kids flinch when they saw badges, even if they had nothing to hide. He didn't complain. He recorded license plates. He wrote letters. He prayed, but he never thought it would come to him. Not after everything. Not after he'd done things the right way. The week before the incident, Marcus returned stateside, 18 months overseas. He didn't announce it. Just called Raymond and said, "I'm home." Raymond didn't ask why. He just said, "Fridge still stocked. Come sit with me." They spent the evening on the porch, watching the streetlights blink into existence. "You remember when you told me about the code?" Marcus asked. Raymond sipped his coffee. "Yeah. You said, 'Hold your head high, even when they want it lowered.'" Raymond nodded. "Still true." Marcus looked down. "I'm tired, Pop. I'm tired of watching them step on dignity like it's just wet pavement." Raymond's voice didn't rise. "That's why you don't wait for them to change the ground. You stand anyway, even if your shoes stay soaked. 2 days later, Marcus parked across from the corner store, still in uniform from an ROTC event at the local college. Bronze star on his chest, medals gleaming under the sun. He watched his father cross the street, bag of groceries in one hand, cane in the other. He smiled. Then came the sirens. No lights, just a flash of attitude. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was training gone unchecked, power unearned, entitlement mistaken for law, and it landed like a boot on Raymond's back. That's who Raymond was. A man who served a country that didn't always return the favor. A man who taught his son what it meant to lead without fear. A man who believed that silence isn't submission, it's waiting for the right moment to speak. And now that moment was coming. Not with fists, but with rank, with law, with everything his son had become. The grocery bag lay split open on the pavement. Oranges rolled into the gutter. A carton of milk cracked, spilling like blood across the sidewalk. And Raymond Ellis, 63, lay face down, his cane snapped beside him, an elbow pinned behind his back by a man less than half his age. "Stop resisting," the officer yelled, for the body cam, not for the truth. Raymond wasn't resisting. He was breathing slow, trying not to pass out, trying not to die where his wife used to park their car. Across the street, Colonel Marcus Ellis didn't move, didn't scream. He stood beside his car, 1 foot on the ground, phone in his palm, recording silently. A bystander might have seen a statue in military uniform. But inside, Marcus was a fuse, counting backward. "Got any weapons on you, old man?" the second officer barked. Raymond coughed. "No, I just—" "Don't move," the first shouted again. Then came the knee. Into the back. Sharp. Measured. Intentional. Raymond's breath caught. "Stop resisting, sir. You're escalating this," one said, glancing toward his partner, a wink, almost. Marcus kept recording. Inside the squad car, Raymond was handcuffed. No Miranda warning. No explanation. The report would later say, "Suspect matched description of burglary suspect. Became agitated when approached. Non-compliant. Minor force used." Every word was a lie, and Marcus read that lie 12 minutes later from the police database he'd accessed via Secure Command clearance. Because Marcus Ellis wasn't just a soldier. He was a decorated intelligence officer with active digital clearance to review domestic incident logs and cross-agency incident reporting, something few knew, even fewer could stop. He made 2 calls. First, to the JAG Judge Advocate General Military Legal Team. Second, to a close contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office Civil Rights Division. He didn't raise his voice. He just sent the footage. Subject: my father. 11:13 a.m. detained. Easton PD. Body cam contradicts report. Attached: time-stamped video, officer badge numbers, chain of custody request form. A sentence: "This is not just personal. This is systemic. I'm activating escalation protocol." At the Easton Police Precinct, Raymond sat in a chair without armrests. One wrist cuffed to a metal bar. No water. No charge read. The younger officer, Davis, typed something at a computer nearby. His partner, Reynolds, was bragging on the phone. "Nah, just another stubborn one. One of those types." Acted like he didn't hear commands. Raymond stared at the wall. He didn't need to hear it again. He'd heard it before. In 1968. In 1975. In 1993, when Marcus was 9 and cried the whole night after watching 2 officers shove his father over a taillight. But this time was different. This time, his son wasn't a boy anymore. This time, his son had a uniform they couldn't ignore. At 12:47 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the station lot. For men in suits. One woman in uniform. Department of Justice. No announcement. Just a badge at the desk and one line. "We're here for detainee Ellis. On Federal Review Authority." The desk sergeant blinked. "Who called this in?" The woman looked him straight in the eye. "Your problem didn't call." He activated. In the back room, Officer Reynolds still hadn't finished his paperwork when the door opened. Marcus stepped in, military dress, still crisp. He didn't look at the officer. He looked at his father. Pop. Raymond looked up, disoriented. Son. Marcus nodded once. You're coming home. He walked over, uncuffed his father, helped him stand, said nothing to the officers, but his silence hit louder than any scream. In the hallway, one DOJ agent paused beside Officer Davis. Where's your body cam footage? Uploading, Davis stammered. Don't bother. We already have the raw feed and the ambient recording. A pause. You're going to want legal counsel. Back in the SUV, Raymond sat beside his son, cradling his ribs, looking out the window at a town he once thought he knew. You didn't have to come in uniform, he whispered. Marcus's jaw tensed. Yes, I did. Raymond sighed. This gonna blow up, huh? Marcus looked ahead. Not blow up, burn clean. The first 24 hours passed in silence. No press conference. No arrests. No apology. Easton PD assumed it would fade like the rest. Another misunderstanding. Another unfortunate use of force. Another black man resisting. But what they didn't know is this. The world was already watching. And this time, someone had receipts. At 6:45 a.m. the next morning, footage hit the inboxes of 3 major newsrooms. Raw body cam from Officer Davis. Station hallway audio. Marcus's cell phone angle from across the street. And a military certification verifying its unedited authenticity. Subject line. When silence isn't an option anymore. Within 90 minutes, it went viral. News anchors stammered. Decorated U.S. Commander Marcus Ellis has released footage of his 63-year-old father being violently detained by local police despite offering no resistance. The internet screamed. They brutalized the father of a soldier who defends their right to do their job. This is how they treat veterans? Grandfathers? Black elders? How many times does this happen when no one is watching? At the precinct, officers watched the story unfold live in their own break room. Davis turned pale. Reynolds went quiet. The captain called an emergency meeting, but it was already too late. The narrative had escaped containment. Meanwhile, Raymond sat in his living room. Ice pack on his ribs. Remote untouched. Phone off. He didn't want to see it. Hear it. Relive it. He didn't want to become a hashtag. He just wanted peace. But Marcus had other plans. Pop, he said, sitting beside him. This isn't just about you. Raymond looked down. I know. That's what scares me. Marcus paused, then placed something in his father's hands. A manila folder. Inside, affidavits from 2 other victims in Easton. One was a 17-year-old boy. The other, a mother who was detained with her infant daughter in the back seat. Both had been silenced, but both had written to Marcus privately after the footage leaked. Raymond's hands trembled as he read their words. And then, something hardened in his eyes. They thought they were breaking me, he said softly. Turns out they just woke me up. Across town, Easton PD released a statement. Cold, sterile, legal. We are reviewing the incident in question involving Mr. Raymond Ellis. At this time, we believe the officers followed protocol based on the perceived threat and noncompliance observed. The backlash was immediate. Noncompliance? The man was walking with a cane. This is the most cowardly, we did nothing wrong I've ever read. How do you perceive a threat in groceries? That night, a vigil formed outside Raymond's home. No signs, no chants, just people, holding candles, wearing black and brown, veterans, nurses, teenagers, pastors. One woman placed a folded American flag at the foot of the driveway. Another carried a photo of her own father, who had died in custody last year. No footage, no justice. Raymond stepped out to greet them. Didn't speak long. Just said, they want us to rage. But I say we outlive them. And we outlast the lies. Meanwhile, Marcus went to work. Not on social media. Not in front of cameras. But in courtrooms. He filed a federal civil rights complaint backed by legal advisors from the military justice system. He requested an independent federal review of Easton PD's use of force records. And quietly he submitted a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, request for Officer Reynolds' personnel file. The contents came back redacted, but Even that was damning. Too much black ink, Marcus muttered, means they're hiding something rotten. Then came the press conference, held not by the city, but by Marcus and two attorneys, one from the NAACP, the other a former JAG officer. Raymond didn't attend, but his presence loomed in every word. Marcus stood at the podium, ribbons on his chest, and said, "My father did not resist. He complied. What they resisted was his dignity, and what they're still resisting is accountability. This will not be resolved with paid leave and press releases. We are demanding full prosecution under federal law." He paused, then added, "And I speak not just as a son. I speak as a soldier. If I can hold a rifle for this country overseas, then this country can hold itself accountable at home." That night, Officer Reynolds received a suspension notice. Unpaid. Indefinite. Davis got a visit from Internal Affairs. But Marcus didn't stop there. He scheduled meetings with state legislators, sent briefs to DOJ civil rights monitors, even reached out to families of previous victims, forming a coalition for deeper inquiry into statewide policing standards. The pressure was building, but so was the cost. Raymond received hate mail. One envelope read, "You raised a traitor." Another, "Keep your boy out of our town." Marcus was followed once, late at night. He didn't report it. He waited in the shadows, memorized the license plate, and logged the route. Silence had taught him to be ready. But amidst the tension, something unexpected happened. A young officer knocked on their door. Black, nervous, maybe 26, said his name was Jalen. "Mr. Ellis, sir, I wasn't there that day, but I saw the footage." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry, and I'm staying in the department because I want to help change it. But I need to know, are we too late?" Raymond didn't answer immediately. He studied the young man, then said, "You're not too late. But if you wait any longer, the next one could be your father. Or you." The offer came at 8:12 a.m. A courier envelope. No return address. Hand-delivered to Marcus's temporary legal office near City Hall. Inside, a draft of a formal apology letter, a non-disclosure agreement, and a settlement check for $115,000, at the bottom in faint gray ink, in exchange for public statement of resolution and forgiveness by both parties. No admission of guilt. No disciplinary action. Just hush money in a silk envelope. Marcus didn't speak. He slid the papers across to Raymond. Raymond stared at the check for a long time. Then, without a word, tore it clean down the center. "They think we're still for sale," he said softly. "But I stopped being quiet the day I hit that concrete." 2 hours later, Marcus received another message. This time from a reporter, encrypted anonymous source. It contained surveillance footage from a nearby pawn shop's rooftop camera. Footage not part of the original police investigation, because the Easton PD didn't control that camera. In it, Officer Reynolds is seen pacing beside the patrol car before the arrest. He's talking to Davis. His voice low but caught. The audio is scratchy but clear enough. "Let's stop that old spook. Looks like he's casing something or waiting to get picked up." Davis laughs. "Watch him give us the 'I'm just walking' speech. These people think sidewalks are theirs." Reynolds smirks. "Not on my shift. They follow Raymond across the street." And the rest plays out as the world already knows. The reporter's email was short. "This camera wasn't in your FOIA request. Thought you should have it before they try to bury it too." Attached was another sentence. "There's a reason this clip never made the evidence log." That evening, Marcus called a press conference. He didn't bring attorneys. He didn't bring a podium. He just stood in front of the courthouse steps, holding the flash drive in one hand and his Bronze Star in the other. The crowd grew fast. Microphones pointed. But he didn't speak to the media. He spoke to the system. "You sent a check. You asked for silence. You offered us dignity as a transaction. But you already cashed that in the moment your badge pressed my father's neck into the street." He held up the flash drive. "This contains what you hope no one would see. Your words, not ours. And this time, you can't delete it. We reject your money. We reject your apology. We demand accountability, or we bring this to Washington. He stepped down. No chance. No applause. Just raw air and truth hanging like smoke. Within 24 hours, Officer Reynolds was placed under federal investigation for civil rights violations. DOJ issued a subpoena to Easton PD's internal records. A growing list of past quiet settlements involving black men over 50 began to surface. The city's mayor called an emergency session of the Civilian Oversight Committee. But more than that, the public stopped looking away. Churches held town halls. Students walked out in protest. Veterans gathered to march, dressed in uniform in support of Raymond. And across the country, headlines read, "Commander defends father's honor with the law," not just a hashtag. The Ellis family refuses to settle for silence. But not everyone applauded. Raymond received a voicemail from a concerned citizen. "You had your moment. Take the money and stay quiet. You're making it worse for all of us." Marcus received a threat in the mail. Cut out newspaper letters glued to a blank envelope. "Your father goes down again. This time we'll make sure there's no camera." He handed it straight to federal agents. Didn't blink. Despite everything, Raymond kept showing up. To community centers, to schools, to a small group for veterans of color who had been silenced by the very nation they served. He spoke slowly, clearly. "They didn't break my bones, but they tried to break my name, and that they don't get to walk away from." Late one night, Marcus and Raymond sat on the porch. The sky was heavy with storm clouds. Lightning blinked somewhere far. Marcus leaned forward. "Pop, I know this is bigger than us now, but part of me still wishes it wasn't you." Raymond exhaled. "I know, but it had to be someone, and I'd rather it be me than someone who ain't got a son ready to stand up." They didn't speak again for minutes, just watched the dark, and waited for the thunder to answer. The Department of Justice report dropped at 9:03 a.m. 82 pages, stamped, "Confidential release, Civil Rights Section." But someone leaked it within the hour. The public saw it raw. Redactions gone. Every name, every timestamp, every broken policy. The summary page was simple and damning. The Easton Police Department has demonstrated a repeated pattern of racial profiling, excessive force against black men over the age of 50, improper record-keeping, suppression of complaints, and intentional obstruction of accountability processes. 12 years. At least 37 complaints. None properly investigated. All quietly settled, if not erased. The names listed included Officer Reynolds, Officer Davis, former Captain Sean Daltrey, 4 internal affairs investigators, and a city attorney who had signed off on multiple NDA settlements. But beneath it all, one line landed hardest. The Ellis incident is not an outlier. It is the moment the machine stopped turning quietly. In Washington, D.C., Marcus Ellis was summoned to testify before a bipartisan congressional hearing on law enforcement reform and veterans' rights. He sat under oath, not as a commander, not as a lawyer, but as a son. He laid out the facts, with timelines, documents, digital logs, zero theatrics. At one point, a senator asked, "Colonel Ellis, do you think your father's treatment was based on race or misunderstanding?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Senator, it wasn't misunderstanding. It was muscle memory. They've done this before. They just didn't expect this one to bleed loud." Back in Easton, the city scrambled. Captain Daltrey resigned. 3 officers were placed on administrative leave. The mayor issued a public apology, stammered, but broadcast. But none of that moved Raymond. He watched from his living room, remote on mute, eyes steady. Then came the invitation. "Mr. Ellis, we request your presence to speak before the same committee as your son. Your experience is vital to the national conversation." Raymond read the letter once, then folded it. "Let Marcus speak," he told his lawyer. "My job was to raise the man who already knows how." But he did write something. 1 page, typed on his old typewriter. 2 fingers. No fancy language. He handed it to Marcus the night before the hearing. "Read it if they ask why I'm not there." Marcus took it, eyes soft. The next morning, Halfway through the hearing, a congresswoman leaned forward. Colonel Ellis, I understand your father declined to appear. Do you mind telling us why? Marcus nodded. He said his time standing at the microphone ended years ago. Now it's our turn. But he wrote something. He unfolded the page. Smooth the edges. Read slowly. I am Raymond Ellis. I have lived 63 years in this country, 47 of them paying taxes, 6 in war, and 3 with a shattered knee I never got compensated for. But the thing I carry most isn't the pain, or the bruises, or the footage. It's the silence. The years I didn't speak. The times I was told, let it go. You ask what I want. I don't want your money. I don't want your sympathy. I want you to stop pretending this isn't designed. I want you to stop hiring men who can't look me in the eye unless I'm bleeding. And I want you to look my son in the face and say this will not happen again. Not just to him, not just to me, but to anyone still walking this land wearing the color of burden. Silence. Deep. Heavy. The kind that doesn't need applause to matter. That night, Raymond turned off the television early. He sat by the window, watched a boy ride past on his bike, hoodie blowing in the wind. He smiled, sipped tea, and whispered to no one. Maybe this time, we didn't just survive. Maybe this time, we left something behind. Justice isn't a destination. It's a demolition. And once you pull the first brick, the whole wall starts to shift. 3 days after the congressional hearing, Easton PD filed an internal countersuit, claimed reputational damage, intentional defamation, and emotional distress among staff due to targeted scrutiny. It was laughable, but dangerous, because systems don't like being stared at, especially not by people they once dismissed as invisible. Marcus received a notice at his military inbox. We have been contacted by legal representatives from Easton requesting to speak with your commanding officer about your public political engagement. It was coded. Careful. An attempt to scare him back into the shadows. But Marcus had earned too many stripes for that. He forwarded the notice to the Legal Ethics Board along with a note. My political stance is called basic dignity. If that's incompatible with my uniform, maybe the uniform has forgotten who it protects. Meanwhile, Raymond received a visit. A lawyer from the city. Polite. Nervous. Scripted. She brought a gesture package. A $250,000 check. A promise to rename a street corner in his honor. And a request to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Raymond stared at the offer like it was a joke delivered too late. He didn't laugh. He simply asked, what happens to the other names you didn't offer corners to? She blinked. I don't follow. He leaned forward. You offered me silence with my name in bold. But what about the men who got erased in italics? She left empty-handed. Across the state, other cities took notice. A quiet ripple. In Fort Maynard, an investigation into 19 dropped complaints against black veterans was reopened. In Dalton County, an officer resigned after footage from 2018 surfaced, a video long buried, now re-examined by a local newspaper inspired by the Ellis case. In 4 precincts, new Ellis protocol policies were drafted. Mandatory civilian oversight review within 24 hours of any physical contact with a citizen over 50. But the most powerful reaction came from those you never see behind podiums. Mothers who wrote to Raymond. My husband never came home from holding his ID up. Teens who wrote to Marcus. Sir, I want to be like you, but without the part where they make you bleed first. A retired officer, anonymous. I watched it happen for years. I walked past rooms I should have opened. Thank you for not walking past. So Marcus and Raymond built something. Not a foundation, not a charity, but a registry. Public, free, verified. The Ellis Registry for Unresolved Force. A place to log every civilian incident involving unjustified detainment or violence. Created by veterans, sustained by communities. No more invisible wounds. No more buried names. They held a launch event at the Easton Public Library. No red carpet. No step and repeat. Just folding chairs and paper sign-in sheets. Raymond opened it with 4 words. We deserve our records. Then sat down. Let others speak. That same week, Reynolds was formally charged with abuse of power, falsifying a police report, violating civil rights under color of law. Davis took a plea deal, agreed to testify. His voice, for the first time, shook. We were told to profile. Not officially, but you knew who to stop. Ellis wasn't the first. He was just the first with a son who wouldn't let it die. The city tried one last trick, offered Raymond the Easton Liberty Medal, the town's highest civilian honor. But he declined, gently, with a smile. Liberty isn't something you hand out in envelopes. You either practice it or you stop pretending. And slowly, the media moved on. New stories, new headlines. But in Easton, something stayed. You could feel it in how officers approached traffic stops, slower, more measured. You could see it in the recruitment office, more women, more black applicants, more questions. And in front of the precinct, someone had painted a quote on the sidewalk. Dignity doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up and refuses to kneel. One evening, Raymond walked into the community center alone. A few kids playing cards. Some teens at the chess table. One young man, maybe 19, looked up. You're him, right? From the video? Raymond smiled. Maybe. The young man nodded. My brother got stopped last week. They let him go after 2 minutes. That's never happened before. Raymond sat beside him, didn't say much, just shuffled the deck, and let the silence speak for itself. It didn't come from a podium. It didn't come with confetti or plaques. It came on a Thursday morning, quiet, gray mid-October. Raymond was unlocking the door to the community hall for the Ellis Registry meeting like he did every week. Inside, folding chairs, coffee in a tin urn, a stack of printed reports for anyone who wanted to read. But that day, there was a knock on the glass behind him. A face he didn't expect. Officer Jalen Ward. New recruit. Young. Black. One of the few who stayed after the investigation. He stepped in, hat off, eyes unsure. Mr. Ellis, he began. I wanted to talk. About that day. Raymond tilted his head. You weren't one of them. Jalen nodded. I wasn't, but I was on duty. I was 2 blocks away. I heard the call over dispatch. I could have driven over. I didn't. Silence. Then, I saw the footage later. I watched it 10 times, and I realized I'd been trained more in control than in conscience. Raymond poured 2 coffees, set one in front of Jalen. No sugar, no cream, just truth. Across town, Marcus was at a local high school, guest speaker for a civics class. He'd done this a few times now, always low-key, no press. He wore a plain button-up, slacks, military bearings softened by presence. A student raised his hand. Did you ever want revenge? Marcus paused, then said, No, I wanted them to look my father in the eye and realize he was never theirs to humiliate. The class went silent. Then one girl whispered, He reminds me of my grandfather. Marcus smiled. Then make sure he knows that while he's still here. That evening, Raymond received a letter in his mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. It read, Mr. Ellis, I was standing at Pump 4 at the gas station across from the incident. I saw everything. I didn't step in. I didn't even film. I just watched, and I've carried that shame for months. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't trust myself. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be better because you made standing up look possible. Raymond folded the letter once, slipped it in his Bible between Psalms and Proverbs. Let the weight rest there. Later that week, Marcus walked into a town hall meeting and was handed a note from the event organizer. He unfolded it. Raymond Ellis Day, unanimously passed by city council. Marcus looked at his father, sitting in the back, arms folded, cap low. Raymond just nodded once. No smile, no words, just the quiet dignity of a man who'd seen cities bend to shame and still chose not to gloat. A few days later, Raymond stood in front of a small group of city workers, students, and residents as the council unveiled a commemorative plaque. He didn't prepare a speech. He simply said, "They told me to move along, but I stood still, and now we're all moving somewhere better." Then he stepped down, let others speak. At the community hall that night, Jalen returned. This time not in uniform. He brought 6 recruits. Asked Raymond if he could run a session with them, just a conversation. Raymond chuckled. "You sure they want to learn from a man who got thrown on concrete?" Jalen replied, "Sir, that's exactly the kind of man we need to learn from." They talked for 3 hours. About what power really means. About restraint. Legacy. What it feels like to be feared before being seen. One recruit, shy, finally asked, "Do you forgive them?" Raymond looked down, thought for a moment, then said, "I forgive myself first. For the years I stayed quiet. For the times I taught my son to survive instead of to stand. And as for them, I forgive the men, but not the lie that raised them." At the end of the night, they gave Raymond a patch. Not official. Homemade. A stitched American flag, with the stars replaced by raised fists and open palms. Beneath it, Ellis trained. He didn't put it on, just stared at it for a long time, then said, "It's not me you need to wear. It's the man after me, the one who doesn't get a camera or a commander or a second chance. Wear him." A week later, someone left a candle and a small card on the sidewalk where Raymond was thrown down. The card read, "Not just a victim, not just a father, a reckoning." The call came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. A social worker from Easton High. "Mr. Ellis, we've got a situation with a student, 17, suspended for refusing to comply during a locker search." Marcus was about to answer when she added, "His name's Caleb Boone, and he asked for you." Marcus paused. "You sure?" He said, and I quote, "Get me, the soldier whose father got slammed into the ground and still stood up." Marcus didn't need more. He grabbed his coat. At the school, Caleb sat alone in the counselor's office. Black hoodie, torn jeans, fist clenched around a detention slip. He didn't look up when Marcus entered, didn't say a word when the counselor stepped out, just stared at the floor. Marcus didn't speak either, not at first. He sat across from the boy, quiet, present. Then softly, "I read the report. They said you were belligerent." Caleb snorted. "They always say that. Means I didn't nod fast enough." Silence again. Marcus leaned in. "What were you really thinking in that moment?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "I was thinking I didn't want to be a hashtag." Marcus exhaled. Not in pity, in recognition. "You know what my dad told me once?" Caleb shrugged. He said, "Every generation gets handed a fight, but not every generation remembers they don't have to fight alone." Caleb finally looked up, eyes sharp, red. "I don't have a dad like that." Marcus didn't flinch. "You do now." Later that week, Caleb came to the community center, sat in the back, said nothing, listened, watched Raymond speak about forgiveness and fire, about how sometimes your voice gets taken, but your dignity stays if you keep your back straight. After the session, Caleb walked up to Raymond. Didn't say, "Thank you." Didn't say, "Hi." Just, "How did you not punch him?" Raymond raised an eyebrow. "I wanted to, but if I had, they would have made me a threat, and I'm too old to let them decide who I am." Caleb nodded. "I'm not that old." Raymond smiled. "Then you got more chances to get it right than I ever did." Weeks passed. Caleb started volunteering at the registry. At first, just folding papers, sweeping the floors, then helping digitize incident reports, learning the law, asking hard questions. Raymond started calling him kid. Marcus started calling him soldier. Neither told him what to become. They just stood behind him while he decided. One night, Caleb stayed after hours. Raymond was closing up. Lights dimmed. "Why do you really do this?" Caleb asked. "Like, really?" Raymond paused, looked at the wall behind him. Photos of the registry's first 100 entries. Then said, "Because one day, someone's going to need a reason to believe this place is worth surviving." He looked at Caleb. "And I want them to see you and know the answer's still yes." Later, Marcus took Caleb to the old sidewalk spot, the place where Raymond had fallen. It was clean now, painted over, but the spot was still there. Marcus knelt. pulled a coin from his pocket, a challenge coin, military, gold-rimmed, insignia of honor. He handed it to Caleb. This isn't for combat. It's for restraint under fire. Caleb ran his thumb over the engraving. What if I mess up? Marcus smiled. Then you do what we all do. You stand up anyway and try again louder. The next week, Caleb stood at the mic for the first time. A town meeting on juvenile reform. Shaky voice. Sweaty palms. But then he said, "My name's Caleb. I'm 17. And I almost became invisible last month. But someone stood still long enough for me to be seen. And now I'm standing for someone else. Whoever they are. Wherever they are. If you're watching this, you're not alone." The room stood with him. Raymond clapped once. The loudest sound in the room. That night, Caleb walked Raymond home. At the porch, he asked, "You think I'll make it?" Raymond didn't answer at first. He looked up at the stars, then said, "You already did, the moment you decided not to disappear." It started with a ripple, a school in Milwaukee, a community college in Baltimore, a precinct in Sacramento, all posting the same phrase on their websites, hallway walls, and social pages. "You deserve your record back." It wasn't a quote. It was a message. One born from Easton. The Ellis Registry, once a local database on a folding table with 3 volunteers, now had chapters in 8 states. Veterans ran most of them. Retired social workers ran others. But what mattered wasn't who ran it. It was who it served. People who had been stopped but never charged. Men with scars and no paperwork. Mothers who'd filed complaints no one ever read. Teenagers afraid to ask what their rights even were. Raymond didn't fly out to any of the launches. He stayed in Easton, planted flowers in the community garden, showed up to Saturday chess lessons, wrote 3 handwritten letters each week to names he pulled from the registry. Each one started the same. "I don't know your story, but I know silence, and you don't deserve to live inside it forever." Meanwhile, Caleb began speaking at events, youth panels, police trainings, even law school workshops, not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as something rarer. A kid who could say, "I was headed off the edge and someone caught me." At one such event in Atlanta, after his panel ended, a girl, maybe 16, came up with tears in her eyes. She whispered, "My brother, he didn't get Marcus." Or a Raymond, "Thank you for saying what he never got to." Caleb hugged her. Didn't say, "It'll be okay." Didn't lie. Just said, "We're going to carry him forward. Every step." Back in Easton, something changed too. The street where Raymond had been thrown to the ground, it got renamed by city vote. Not Ellis Street. Not something ceremonial. It became Stand Anyway Way. No fanfare. Just a small new sign. Underneath it, someone taped a note. "This isn't just for Mr. Ellis. It's for every time we were told to shut up and keep walking, and we didn't." At Easton High, a new initiative began. Every Wednesday, one class period was now the Ellis Hour. Students learned what to do during a police stop, how to file a report, how to ask the right questions, what civic courage looks like in real life. Some parents pushed back, called it too political. But the principal, a white woman who once stayed silent about Raymond's case, responded publicly, "If teaching dignity is political, then I'm proud to cast that vote." In D.C., Marcus continued to testify. He joined national task forces, consulted on federal oversight programs, spoke on ethics panels at military academies, but he always ended the same way. "We were never asking for special treatment, just honest accounting. And if a man who served this country can't walk home without bleeding, then we haven't earned the word just yet." One afternoon, Marcus returned home to Easton to find Raymond sitting on the porch with 2 young officers, both women, both new recruits. They were laughing, sharing cornbread from a napkin. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Raymond said, "They ask me how to tell if they're becoming the problem." Marcus smiled. "What did you say?" Raymond sipped his coffee, told them when they stop asking, that's when they already are. The world didn't change overnight. Reynolds still faced trial. Hate still lived online. Not every badge turned good, but something shifted, because now when someone said, "I was hurt," the room didn't go quiet. It leaned in. At the registry, a new wall went up, not to divide, to honor. It listed 1,000 names. Names of people who once filed reports and were ignored. Names of people who now had a place where they were believed first. Above the wall, etched in steel. They thought we'd stay quiet, but we wrote it down. And now the world is reading. One morning, Caleb stood at that wall. Finger on one name, Jordan Massey. His cousin. Died at 22. No charges. No tape. No closure. Raymond joined him. Said nothing. After a moment, Caleb asked, "You think they'd be proud of us?" Raymond didn't blink. They already are. We didn't just survive. We showed them what survival is for. The sidewalk was quieter than usual that morning. No sirens. No school buses. No wind. Just the soft scrape of Raymond's cane against concrete. And the rhythmic breath of a man who had walked this block 1,000 times, but never quite like this. He paused at the corner, looked down. The faint line in the concrete was still there, the crack from when his cane snapped. Almost invisible now, covered by age, weather, time. But he saw it. He always saw it. A boy on a scooter rode up. Maybe 7, maybe 8. Brown skin, hair tight curled, curious eyes. He looked up at Raymond. "Mister, is this where it happened?" Raymond blinked. "Where what happened?" "Where they pushed you." The boy pointed at the wall. At the plaque. At the painting someone had added last week of a silhouette rising up with a cane raised like a staff. Raymond knelt, slow but strong, met the boy's gaze. "No, son. This ain't where they pushed me. This is where I decided they wouldn't keep me down." The boy nodded. Didn't ask more. Just whispered, "You're the reason my brother joined the academy," and rode off. Raymond sat on the bench nearby, took off his cap, let the sunlight warm his scalp. From his pocket, he pulled out the same piece of paper he had read in Washington, folded and unfolded too many times. Corners soft. He ran his fingers over the words, but didn't need to read them. He knew every line. Across the street, Marcus pulled up. Out of uniform today. Plain hoodie. Jeans. Dad energy. He joined his father on the bench. Raymond spoke without turning. "You see that kid?" "Yeah." He knew what happened here, and he didn't look afraid. Marcus nodded. "That's your work, Pop." Raymond smiled. "No, that's ours. You held the world back just long enough for me to breathe again, and now we've bought enough air for them to start shouting." They sat in silence. 2 generations. Same fire. Different flames. Then Marcus reached into his jacket and handed his father a small velvet box. Raymond raised an eyebrow. "Better not be another coin. You know I don't carry metal." Marcus smirked. "Just open it." Inside, a gold lapel pin. Tiny. Simple. Inscribed with only 2 words. He stayed. Raymond didn't cry, but he blinked slowly and whispered, "Damn right I did." Later that afternoon, Caleb arrived at the registry office. He found a note taped to the door. "Gone walking. Come back with a question worth asking. R." Caleb smiled. He pulled out his notebook, sat on the steps, wrote 3 questions. All of them big. All of them born from what he'd learned by watching men stay instead of running. That evening, Raymond sat at his kitchen table. The same one where he once read settlement offers, where he iced his ribs, where he said nothing for years. Tonight, he wrote, just 1 line. A letter, addressed to no one. If they forget my name, that's fine. But if they remember how I stood, then that's enough to start a new world. Later, he folded it, slid it inside a book, wrote 1 name on the inside cover. For Caleb. Outside, the city was quiet, but something had shifted. People didn't cross the street when they saw a badge. Kids didn't whisper when someone said, registry. And men, who had once been told to keep their heads down, now stood straighter, like the wind had changed direction and was finally at their back. At the local library, a teacher asked her class, "What do you remember about Mr. Ellis?" 1 child raised her hand. He made the world stop walking past people. In the end, there were no medals, no final gavel, no last word, only this: a man walking home, cane steady, back unbroken, leaving behind not a monument, but a map. For anyone ready to stand anyway. He didn't ask to be a hero. He just refused to disappear. And in doing so, he became the line no one could cross again.